Director General of RTE, Kevin Bakhurst, has revealed his strategic vision for the broadcaster that involves swinging cuts and increased funding. And he joins us now in studio. Good morning to you. Thank you very much for coming in. So RTE will be smaller and dearer. Explain why it needs to be both.
So we need to be smaller because we need to be more efficient in terms of the organisation and taking costs out, being more streamlined. Um, it will be dearer because a huge amount of this is going to go in directly into content, both in the broadcaster but also in the independent sector. And I think that's one thing people lost sight of a little bit yesterday with the announcement. There's been a big focus on job cuts, and that's an important part of it. But also, part of the strategy is about the renewed investment in the independent sector, huge rise of investment in independent productions and in things like original Irish drama, a big expansion the number of hours, and in key public service content such as news and current affairs and Irish language and so on.
Okay, so we'll get to that outsourcing and that investment there in a moment, but let's concentrate on those job cuts first of all that you've mentioned. 400 redundancies, but 150 of them are staff retiring anyway. Is that correct? So 250 net.
Well, 150 people are due to retire. Now, we probably will have to, we'll certainly have to replace some of those people who go because they'll be in key jobs that we can't leave vacant. But, that'll be a start on achieving the 400 number, certainly from that 150 over a period of a few years.
Okay, and drilling down into those figures, those 400 redundancies, what's the cost saving there from them?
Well, the cost saving over a period of time, and what I was saying yesterday, and particularly to staff, is that those jobs would go over a period of the strategy over 4 or 5 years. So it's not a huge exodus at the beginning of it, but there is a saving of millions over the years, which accumulates as you let people go. So, and as those savings accumulate, we will spend that on things like digital projects and also investment in the site. As I said, we're moving back to a smaller part of the site, and we need to invest in the digital
Okay, so
infrastructure.
millions, is there? We don't have an actual headline figure.
The figures are being looked at by New Era at the moment to make sure that they stack up. But it is over a period of time. It's many millions that are saved by that.
Those people who are due to retire, will they be allowed to apply for a redundancy package?
That's not normally the way we operate it. We have to do the details of the voluntary exit scheme.
Because
Normally,
that obviously would remove
yeah,
any kind of saving there.
yeah, and it would be a little bit of a waste of money if people are due to go in the next couple of years. Sometimes people can take early retirement if they're close to retirement, if that's what they choose, but not a voluntary exit scheme.
Okay, and with regard to people who've already handed in their notice, and I know you're going to have something like 40 redundancies you're looking
Mm,
for almost instantly.
mm.
People who are already working notice, are they allowed to apply for redundancy packages?
No, not if they've already handed notice. And we don't have the voluntary exit scheme open yet for 2024, the one you allude to. So people haven't been able to apply for
Okay.
that yet.
How is RTE going to function with 20% less staff?
Well, we need to reshape the organisation, and that's a critical part of the strategy, which is we do need to be simpler and smaller. We have made a commitment to invest outside Dublin, particularly in Cork to start with, and that's a really important part of the project to be producing more content outside Dublin and around the island. But as we said here, as we save money, we are going to invest in new programming, new content produced by Ireland's very vibrant creative sector, and we already produce a lot with them in terms of drama and factual and so on. And I think there's a huge opportunity here to create jobs in the creative sector.
Because the fear, obviously, among RTE staff is that they're going to be expected to do more with less, that they're going to have to work harder.
Yeah, I think that's been the mistake in the past, actually. When we've had voluntary exit schemes, the organisation has tried to carry on doing exactly what we were doing all the time, the same amount of programming, the same amount of services. And this has got to be different. As I say, we're going to be producing more externally, and
Okay.
also we are going to cut services as
So you
well.
are so that 20% you're going to cut some services. So do you expect to get some of the people in the services you cut? You're cutting RTE Pulse, you're cutting 2XM and things like that. Do you expect to get some of the redundancies from those services that you're cutting?
That's not my expectation at the moment. I mean, those services probably will be cut sooner than the strategy is implemented. We'll move ahead and do that. The idea is we put some of that resource into things like podcasts where we don't have enough resource at the moment. We've got only a small number of people on the services we're cutting, but we have a lot of talent there, and I want to make sure that we find. I've already been speaking to Dan Healy, who's head of 2FM, about the talented people we have and what other roles we'd be looking for them.
So just with regard to people in services that you're cutting, they're not going to be, obviously we have no compulsory
Mm.
redundancies currently on the table. They're going to be offered other jobs. They're going to be redeployed even if they're cameramen or what have you, and there's no use for them, what's going to happen to these people?
Well, no, we have to find meaningful roles for them. It's not being redeployed if there's no role for them. But we need to find roles. I was talking to the staff yesterday and said clearly we'll offer opportunities either for retraining or relocation. We've got some brilliant people at RTE, and I want to make sure that we make it a great place to work for them and offer them opportunities to move around more easily.
This moving into the independent sector, the independent commercial sector, isn't that sort of an admission that that's because RTE can do things more cheaply and more efficiently outside the organisation?
No, and that's actually not always true, funnily enough. Sometimes because we have the infrastructure and we have the people already on the payroll, sometimes it's more expensive to make stuff in the independent sector. It's not always a cost saving. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But the thing we achieve by working with the independent sector is there are some brilliant creative people outside RTE, and my view is RTE should be the home of brilliant Irish content, whether it's created internally or externally by our independent partners.
If you don't get these 400 redundancies, or retirees, if it doesn't materialise, will compulsory redundancies have to be looked at? There are three previous reports rather to this vision that you have launched have said compulsory redundancies are necessary.
Yeah, no, I'm not prepared to go down that road. I don't think it's something we should be doing as an organisation. I don't think it'll be necessary, and I've made that commitment to staff. And I've also heard the Taoiseach and the Minister say that they've got zero appetite for RTE to look at compulsory redundancies. So I've no intention of doing that. If we
Okay.
don't achieve the 400, and I'm confident we will over time. We've got a long time to do it. If we don't achieve it, we'll have to look for some savings elsewhere. But I'm confident we'll achieve that.
Your budget is just over 300 million, though, but 190 of that is staff costs. Without redundancies, there's no way you're going to get the cuts, or you would have to have people sitting there doing nothing and no content being produced. I mean, how do you square that sort of accounting circle without redundancies? I mean, you need them, and you need them in big numbers. 1 in 5, it's huge.
We do need them. It's a really important part of the plan. Look, our experience is the last voluntary exit scheme we had 200 applications. We were only able to let 30 people go. So we know there's an appetite from some people to go. We don't want to, this has got to be done in tandem with all the other changes to the organisation. We want to reshape the organisation and deliver the other parts of the strategy that are really important.
That's really interesting what you said. Why were 170 people turned down for redundancy?
Because we didn't have the money to pay for the other 170 to go at that stage.
Okay, so redundancies don't always result in cost savings then?
They do result in long-term cost savings, yeah, but you have to handle it properly and you have to not backfill people when they go. There's no good letting people go and then backfilling them 3 or 6 months later, and I think that has happened on occasion. That can't be allowed to happen. And one thing I said yesterday is there needs to be, and I said this again at our staff meeting, but there needs to be transparency for staff and also for audiences and for government about how we handle this exit programme to demonstrate that we are smaller and more efficient and the type of people we have let go.
Okay. Montro's being sold, the campus being sold, that's off the table now because we're hearing it's only going to raise 100 million euros. I had a quick look at other sites that were for sale in Dublin 4. Based on the size of Montrose, that gives us around 4 million an acre is what you're talking about there. I saw nothing for that price. There was stuff maybe for 7 or 8 million an acre. There was stuff for 15, 16 million an acre. Even if you average all of that, RTE, the campus, would be worth something 3 times the magnitude of 100 million euros.
Yeah, look, I wanted to look at all options. We had the site valued by Savills, who did the valuation for us on the last piece of land we sold, and their valuation
that was 9 acres for 107 million.
Yeah, and they came back and said, I'm afraid it's significantly less than you might imagine. It's 100 million. Now, part of the reason is we have 4 or 5 listed buildings on there which severely impact on the value of the land. We also have the mast on there, as people know. So it's not an attractive piece of land for developers. And I have spoken to 1 or 2 other.
It is a 23.5 million acre site. It's massive, even though I know there's a couple of period buildings, and I think oddly Radio Centre, which is questionable, is also listed. It's still a very large site in an incredibly desirable part of Dublin.
Yeah, but first of all, if you look at the general value of office properties and that kind of land around Dublin, Savills told me this and others have said it, there's been a fall since we sold the last piece of land. But the listed buildings have a huge impact because they are dotted around, and it's not just a question of you not being able to do anything with them, but you are restricted about what you can do in the vicinity of those listed buildings as well. So it really does impact on the value of the land. And it's not what
It's
I
just
necessarily
interesting.
want to
I had a
have.
look at Savills' own website, and they were saying that they were selling commercial property for between 50 and 70 million euros per acre in Dublin City last year.
Well, look,
Just
I
quite,
can only
it's
I can
quite
only point to the valuation they wrote to me and
it's
gave
quite
me.
interesting. One of the, I suppose, the big headline grabbers from yesterday is that nobody is going to earn more than yourself, Kevin. How do you think the presenters are going to feel about that? What if they say when their contract comes up for a negotiation, we'll walk?
Look, we've had that before. I think high salaries we pay presenters out of public money has been quite corrosive for RTE over the years, and RTE, to be fair, has reduced them over a period of years, but it remains I think a corrosive issue for the organisation, and I think we finally have to deal with it. And we don't have that many, frankly, who earn more than, it's not about my salary, it's about the Director General salary, but we don't have that many who earn more than the Director General. And I don't like putting them in the spotlight, but I think they know the reality of where we are. And you can't be asking for proper public funding and at the same time not being shown to manage your costs.
SIP2 have said that they're going to fight any cuts as they see them, and obviously they're a very powerful union. Is Noel Kelly actually right that presenters are the ones who are going to get cut now because they don't have a union, and unionised people are treated differently?
No, not at all. We value our presenters hugely, and we've got some really, first class presenters on air, and that's how we want to keep it, and that's what the audience expects. But I just don't think we need to be paying what we've been paying in the past to bring through that talent and have those talented presenters on air. But I'm realistic enough. We're competing with Newstalk and others, and unfortunately, sometimes people go. But
Two other
that's the way it is.
quick questions for you. For example, somebody like Claire Byrne, she earns 280,000 per year. Somebody like Joe Duffy earns 350,000 per year. But Joe Duffy does television and he does radio. If he earns 250 for his radio show, for example, and then adds on a bit of television work afterwards, does that mean he'll earn more than the Director General?
Well, he might as an individual, not from RTE is the answer. So, we have presenters who are paid by RTE and then they may do extra work through independents and then they get paid by the independent for that work. And, that we've got to be flexible about that. If we commission a piece from the independent which uses an RTE person, they would expect to get paid by the independent for that piece of work.
Okay. And very last question. Sometime over the next 7 years of your tenure, it may come to pass through inflation or other issues that a presenter may end up being paid more than 250,000. It may be a commercial reality that you want that to happen. Does that mean you now get a pay rise as well if you're the benchmark?
I'm not looking for a pay rise.
Should it happen?
Oh, look, I'm not looking for a pay rise. We actually, one thing I did say is we would benchmark my pay and all the pay of the leadership team against comparable jobs in semi-states and in industry. And I said that in one of the committees, and we'll do that to make sure that we are fairly paid. But the idea is not that I get a pay increase. That's not what I'm asking for.
Director General of RTE, Kevin Bakhurst, thank you very much for speaking to Newstalk Breakfast.